The crash happened at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, metal screaming against metal as my Honda Civic spun twice before slamming into the concrete barrier on Highway 95. My head cracked against the side window, the airbag exploding into my chest, and in the sudden ringing silence that followed, I heard it. My daughter, 3 weeks old, screaming from the back seat. Blood ran warm down my temple as I twisted around, my ribs protesting with sharp stabs of pain. The car seat had held. Emma was screaming, red-faced and terrified, but the seat had held. My fingers fumbled with the seatbelt, shaking so badly I could barely press the release. 2 cars had stopped. A woman was running toward us, phone already pressed to her ear. "Ma'am, don't move," she shouted through my shattered window. "Ambulance is coming." "My baby," I gasped. "I need to get my baby." The paramedics arrived 7 minutes later. They pulled me out first despite my protests, laid me on a stretcher while a female EMT carefully extracted Emma from her car seat. My daughter's screams had turned to hiccuping sobs. The EMT placed her on my chest for just a moment before another paramedic shook his head. "She needs to be checked separately, ma'am. Different ambulance. You might have internal injuries, and we can't risk." "I'm going with her," I said, trying to sit up. The world tilted. "Ma'am, you have a head injury. You're bleeding. We need to secure you first." They took Emma. I watched the second ambulance pull away, carrying my 3-week-old daughter, and the panic that seized my chest was worse than the pain in my ribs, worse than the throbbing in my skull. I tried to call my mother. She didn't answer. I called again. Nothing. The paramedic working on my IV looked at me with professional sympathy. "Is there someone else we can call?" I gave them my mother's number again, then my father's. No answer. The ambulance jolted forward, sirens wailing, and I stared at my phone screen through blurring vision. 3 weeks postpartum, single mother, car totaled, concussion, possible internal bleeding, and my baby being rushed to Seattle Children's Hospital without me. At the ER, they wheeled me straight into trauma. CT scan for my head, X-rays for my ribs, 4 of them cracked. Moderate concussion. Lacerations across my forehead and shoulder. The doctor, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, told me I was lucky. "Your daughter?" I asked. "Being evaluated in pediatrics. No obvious injuries, but they're running full diagnostics. You did everything right with that car seat. I need to see her. As soon as we clear you. Another hour, maybe 2. Is your family coming?" I tried calling again. My mother's phone went straight to voicemail this time. My father's rang and rang. I left messages, my voice cracking. "Mom, I was in an accident. Emma's here. We're at Seattle Children's. Please call me back." Then the tears came, hot and bitter, because I knew she wouldn't come. My mother, Patricia Morgan, had made her position clear 3 weeks ago when I'd come home from the hospital with Emma. She'd stood in the doorway of my childhood home, arms crossed, face hard as granite. "You made your choice, Rachel. You decided to keep that baby even after I told you how this would ruin your life. You decided to do this alone. So now you get to be alone. Mom, I just need somewhere to stay for a few weeks. Until I find an apartment. No, you're 26 years old. You have a degree. You have a job. Figure it out." Emma had been crying in her carrier, and my mother hadn't even looked at her. Hadn't acknowledged her first grandchild. My father had stood behind her, silent and complicit, and when I'd turned to him for support, he'd just shaken his head. "Your mother's right, Rachel. You made this bed." I'd left. Found a tiny studio apartment in Renton. Burned through my savings on first month, last month, deposit, and basic furniture. Went back to work after 2 weeks because I had no choice. No maternity leave saved up. No partner to share the load. Emma stayed with a daycare that cost more than my rent. I was drowning, and my mother knew it, and she didn't care. Now, lying in a hospital bed with cracked ribs and a concussion, trying to reach the woman who'd given birth to me, I got nothing. Silence. The nurse who came to check my vitals saw my face. Still no luck with family? They're not coming, I whispered. She squeezed my hand. I'll see if I can get you to pediatrics faster. They cleared me 90 minutes later. A different nurse, younger, helped me into a wheelchair, despite my protests that I could walk. My ribs disagreed sharply when I tried to stand. She wheeled me through 2 corridors and up an elevator to the pediatric ward. Emma was in a private assessment room, lying in a hospital bassinet, monitored by what looked like a dozen machines. She's perfect, the pediatric doctor said immediately, seeing my face. No injuries, not a scratch. But we're keeping her overnight for observation. Standard protocol for car accidents involving infants. I reached into the bassinet with shaking hands. Emma's tiny fingers wrapped around my thumb, and I started crying again. Couldn't stop. The relief and fear and pain all crashing together. The doctor gave me privacy. I don't know how long I sat there, holding my daughter's hand, whispering apologies she couldn't understand. My phone rang at 6:15 p.m. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Rachel Morgan? A man's voice, unfamiliar, with the crisp accent of old money and East Coast boarding schools. Yes? This is William Ashford. Your grandfather. My hand tightened on the phone. I hadn't heard from my grandfather in 15 years, not since my grandmother's funeral. He'd moved to Boston after that, cut ties with my mother after some family dispute I'd never fully understood. I'd been 11. I barely remembered him. How did you... I have alerts set up for family members, legal and medical. Your accident triggered a notification. Are you and the baby all right? The question, asked with genuine concern by a man who was essentially a stranger, broke something in me. We're okay. Emma's fine. I have some injuries, but nothing serious. We're at Seattle Children's Hospital. And your mother? Won't answer her phone. My voice came out flat, hollow. She doesn't want anything to do with Emma. Or me. Silence on the other end. Then very quietly, I see. I'm sorry. I don't even know why you called. I called because you're my granddaughter. Because you were in an accident. Because you have a child. His voice sharpened. And because my daughter apparently inherited more from her mother than I realized. I didn't know how to respond to that. Rachel, listen to me carefully. I'm going to make some calls. Don't leave that hospital. Do you understand? I don't need... Yes, you do. And for once in your life, let someone help you. I'll call you back within the hour. He hung up. I stared at my phone, confused and exhausted, and not sure what had just happened. The nurse came back to tell me they were moving Emma to a pediatric room for overnight observation, that I could stay with her, that they'd bring a cot. I texted my work. Texted the daycare to cancel tomorrow. Tried one more time to call my mother. Nothing. At 7:43 p.m., my phone rang again. William Ashford. I've spoken with the hospital administration. You and Emma have been moved to a private suite. All expenses covered. There will be a nurse assigned exclusively to you both for the duration of your stay. Grandfather, I can't accept. You can and you will. I've also arranged for a car service to take you home when you're discharged. Furthermore, I've contacted a family law attorney. Her name is Michelle Reeves. She'll call you tomorrow morning. Why would I need a lawyer? Because I'm updating my estate plan, Rachel. And because your mother needs to understand that her actions have consequences. My grandfather's estate. I'd heard whispers growing up. The Ashford family fortune, built on shipping and real estate, worth somewhere north of $200 million. My mother had been expecting to inherit a substantial portion. She'd mentioned it more than once over the years. always with a smugness that made me uncomfortable. "I don't understand," I said slowly. "You will. Get some rest. Take care of that baby. I'll be in Seattle this weekend." He hung up again. I sat in the wheelchair, Emma sleeping peacefully in the bassinet beside me, and tried to process what had just happened. Within 20 minutes, hospital staff moved us to a suite that looked more like a hotel room than a hospital. Private bathroom, couch, actual bed instead of a cot. A nurse named Sandra introduced herself and told me to press the call button for anything at all. I called my mother one more time that night, left one final voicemail. "Mom, Emma and I are okay. No thanks to you. Thought you should know." She called back at 11:37 p.m. I was half asleep, Emma fed and changed, and sleeping in the hospital bassinet. My mother's voice was tight, controlled. "I got your messages." "All of them?" "Because I called you 6 hours ago from an ambulance." "I was busy, Rachel. I have a life. I can't drop everything just because you—" "I was in a car accident. Your granddaughter was in a car accident. We could have died. But you didn't. You're fine. You're always fine. You always land on your feet." The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. "Mom, I told you that baby would ruin your life. I told you to make a different choice. You didn't listen. So now you deal with the consequences. She's 3 weeks old. She's your granddaughter. She's a mistake you refuse to correct." My mother's voice went cold, the tone she used to use when I disappointed her as a child. "I'm not going to watch you throw your life away for some man's baby when he didn't even stick around to—" "Stop." My voice came out harder than I'd heard it in months. "Just stop talking." "Excuse me? Emma and I don't need you. We're fine. You're right about that. We're always fine. Without you." I hung up. My hands were shaking. Sandra knocked softly and came in, saw my face, didn't ask questions, just brought me water and asked if I needed anything for pain. I took the ibuprofen she offered and lay down next to Emma's bassinet, watching her sleep, trying not to think about my mother's voice calling my daughter a mistake. Friday morning, Michelle Reeves called at exactly 9 a.m. "Ms. Morgan, I'm calling on behalf of William Ashford. He's asked me to represent you in several matters. First, he'd like to establish a trust fund for Emma. Second, he's updating his will and estate plan. And third, he wants to ensure you have adequate legal support regarding your current family situation. Do you have time to speak?" I was feeding Emma, still in the hospital suite, cleared for discharge, but grandfather had asked us to stay one more night. "I have time." "Excellent. Let's start with the trust. Mr. Ashford is establishing a $5 million trust for Emma, accessible when she turns 25, with provisions for education and medical expenses to be drawn before then. He'll need you to sign some documents." $5 million. I nearly dropped my phone. "Ms. Morgan, I'm here. He's also revising his primary estate. Previously, his daughter Patricia was set to inherit 60% of his assets, with the remaining 40% divided among various charities. He's reversing that ratio. Patricia will now receive 40%. You and Emma will receive 60%, split evenly between you." The math did itself in my head. 60% of $200 million. $120 million. Split between Emma and me. $60 million each. "He can't. My mother will." "Your mother will be informed this afternoon. Mr. Ashford wanted you to know first. He also wanted me to make clear that this isn't punitive. He simply believes his resources should go to family members who value family. His words, not mine." I sat down heavily on the couch. Emma made a small sound, and I adjusted her automatically, my mind spinning. "There's one more thing," Michelle said, her voice careful now. "Mr. Ashford has asked me to include a clause. If Patricia contests the will or takes any action that could be construed as harassment toward you or Emma, Her inheritance will be reduced to the legal minimum required by Washington state law. Effectively nothing. He's really doing this. He is. I'll be sending over documents for you to review. Take your time. There's no rush. And Ms. Morgan? Your grandfather asked me to tell you that he's sorry he wasn't there sooner. He wants to make up for lost time, if you'll let him. We talked for another 20 minutes about logistics, about lawyers, about protections and provisions. When I hung up, I just sat there holding Emma, trying to understand that my life had fundamentally changed in the span of a single phone call. My grandfather arrived Saturday morning. I was back in my studio apartment, Emma sleeping in her bassinet, when the intercom buzzed. I'd expected him to be older, frailer, but William Ashford at 78 looked like he could run a marathon. Tall, thin, impeccably dressed in a navy suit, silver hair precisely cut. He carried a leather bag and looked at my tiny apartment with the careful neutrality of someone trying not to show shock. "Rachel," he said, and held out his hand. I shook it, formal and awkward. "Thank you for coming, and for everything. The hospital, the lawyer. I don't know how to... May I see her?" I led him to the bassinet. He looked down at Emma with an expression I couldn't read, something between grief and wonder. "She has your grandmother's eyes, the same gray-blue. Elizabeth would have loved her. I don't really remember grandmother very well. I was so young when she died. You were, and I handled that badly, leaving the way I did, cutting everyone off." He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw the regret there. "I was angry at your grandmother for dying, angry at your mother for being so much like her in all the worst ways. I ran away instead of dealing with it. Left you caught in the middle. I'm sorry for that." I didn't know what to say. "Michelle told you about the estate changes?" "Yes." "Grandfather, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to. I want to. Your mother called me last night." His mouth tightened into a thin line. "She was displeased. I can imagine. She accused me of senility, of being manipulated by you. She threatened to contest the will, to sue for undue influence, to..." He stopped, took a breath. "And then she made the mistake of telling me exactly what she said to you in the hospital, about Emma being a mistake, about you ruining your life." The air in the apartment felt suddenly heavy. I told her that if she wanted to discuss mistakes, we could start with her decision to turn her back on her daughter and granddaughter in their moment of greatest need. I told her that if she wanted to discuss ruined lives, we could examine her track record as a mother. And I told her that if she contested the will or bothered you in any way, I would reduce her inheritance to $1 and make sure every socialite in Seattle knew exactly why. She must have been furious. Oh, she was. She called me a vindictive old man, accused me of playing favorites, said I was choosing you over her. He looked at Emma again, and his voice softened. I told her that was exactly what I was doing, because you needed choosing, and she'd already made her choice. My phone started ringing. My mother's number. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Again. Again. "You don't have to answer," grandfather said quietly. "I know." But I picked up on the 5th call. "Mom, how dare you?" Her voice shook with rage. "How dare you manipulate my father, turn him against me, steal my inheritance? I didn't steal anything. I didn't even know grandfather was alive until 3 days ago." "Liar. You planned this. You got pregnant deliberately, had that baby as leverage, staged this whole pathetic..." "I was in a car accident, Mom. A real accident. With your granddaughter in the car. I called you for help and you couldn't be bothered to answer. So you ran crying to Daddy? Played the victim? Made him feel sorry for you?" "He called me. I didn't even have his number." "I don't believe you. This is calculated, Rachel. You're trying to punish me for not supporting your bad decisions." "No, Mom. You're being punished for abandoning your daughter and granddaughter when we needed you. There's a difference. That baby is not my granddaughter. I told you to get rid of it." Grandfather's hand closed gently over mine. He shook his head, reached for the phone. I gave it to him. "Patricia." His voice could have cut glass. "That's enough." "Dad, you can't possibly believe her lies." "I believe what I saw. Medical records don't lie. Hospital staff don't lie. You refused 6 calls from your daughter while she was injured, and your granddaughter was being evaluated for trauma. You told her that Emma was a mistake. You called a 3-week-old infant it. I believe all of that because you just confirmed it." Silence on the other end. "Here's what's going to happen. You will not contact Rachel unless she contacts you first. You will not attempt to see Emma. You will not contest the will. If you do any of these things, I will reduce your inheritance to the legal minimum and donate the rest to Planned Parenthood in Emma's name. Am I clear?" "You can't." "I can. I have excellent lawyers." Michelle Reeves is one of the best estate attorneys on the West Coast. Every word of my new will is airtight. Test me if you'd like, but I promise you won't enjoy the results. He handed the phone back to me. My mother was crying now. Angry tears I could hear even through the phone. "Rachel, please. Talk to him. Make him understand." "Understand what? That you think my daughter is a mistake? That you'd rather have money than a relationship with your only grandchild?" "I understand perfectly, Mom. You're ruining our family." "No. You did that when you closed the door on a 3-week-old baby. Goodbye, Mom." I hung up. Blocked her number. Blocked my father's number too, because he'd made his choice when he stood behind her in that doorway. My hands were shaking again, but this time it felt different. Not fear, not panic. Something cleaner. "You okay?" Grandfather asked. "I think so. That was overdue. Your mother has needed to face consequences for a long time. Your grandmother used to shelter her from them. I tried to, after Elizabeth died. We created a monster, I'm afraid." He sat down on my second-hand couch, looking suddenly tired. "I'd like to be in your life, Rachel. In Emma's life. If you'll have me. I know I don't deserve it, but—" "Yes," I said simply. "Yes, we'd like that." He smiled then, a real smile that transformed his whole face. "Good. Then let's talk about getting you out of this apartment. I own a condo building in Queen Anne. 3-bedroom corner unit just came available. Better neighborhood. Better schools for when Emma's older. And I'd like to set up a monthly allowance for you both. Something that lets you work because you want to, not because you're terrified of drowning. Grandfather, you've already humor an old man. Let me do this. Let me be the grandfather I should have been all along." Emma woke up then, making the small mewing sounds that meant she was hungry. I picked her up, started preparing a bottle, and watched my grandfather watch his great-granddaughter with an expression of absolute wonder. This man, who I barely knew, who had dropped everything and flown across the country because his granddaughter had been in an accident, who had rearranged his entire estate to protect a baby he'd never met, who had stood up to his own daughter without hesitation because she'd called that baby a mistake. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for everything, for the hospital, for the lawyer, for being here, for choosing us." "Family chooses family," he said simply. "I forgot that for a while. Your mother never learned it. But you—" He looked at me holding Emma, and his eyes were bright. "You know it in your bones. That baby is lucky to have you." My phone buzzed. A text from my mother's number, somehow getting through despite the block. Just 2 words. "You'll regret this." I showed Grandfather. He read it, took my phone, and typed back with surprising speed for a man his age. "The only regret is that I didn't do this sooner. Stop contacting Rachel. This is your final warning. William Ashford." He handed the phone back. I'll have Michelle send a formal cease and desist tomorrow, just to make it official. She's really not going to let this go, is she? Probably not. Not at first. But she will eventually, when she realizes, I mean every word. Your mother understands money, Rachel. She understands consequences when they hit her wallet. It's the only language she's ever really spoken. Emma finished her bottle and I burped her tiny body warm against my shoulder. Grandfather watched with the focused attention of someone memorizing every detail. I've missed so much, he said softly. Your whole life. And now Emma's first weeks. I can't get that back. No, but you're here now. That's what matters. I'd like to be here for all of it. The late-night feedings, the first steps, the first words. I'd like to be the grandfather who shows up to school plays and soccer games and graduations, if that's all right with you. More than all right. My phone rang again. Different number this time. I didn't recognize it. Ms. Morgan? This is Janet from Seattle Children's Hospital Billing Department. I'm calling about the charges from your stay. It looks like there was some confusion about payment, and I wanted to verify. My grandfather covered everything. William Ashford. He arranged it with administration. Yes, I see that now. I apologize for the confusion. Everything is settled. I also wanted to let you know that Mr. Ashford made an additional donation to our pediatric trauma unit. A substantial one. The hospital wanted to express their gratitude. How substantial? I asked, looking at grandfather. $2 million. He's establishing the Elizabeth Ashford Pediatric Care Fund in memory of his late wife. It will help families who can't afford extended pediatric care. We're incredibly grateful. I hung up and just stared at him. $2 million? Your grandmother died of complications from a stroke. The hospital care in those final weeks cost a fortune. We could afford it, but I saw families there who couldn't, who had to make impossible choices. Emma's accident reminded me of that. So I did something about it. You're something else, you know that? I'm a man with too much money and not enough time left. I'd rather spend both on things that matter. He stood up, wincing slightly. I should let you rest. I'm staying at the Four Seasons. I'll call tomorrow about the apartment situation. Unless you need anything tonight? We're okay. Thank you. For everything. He kissed my forehead, careful of the healing cut there, and touched Emma's hand with one finger. Sleep well, both of you. I'll see you tomorrow. After he left, I sat in my tiny studio apartment, holding my daughter, and tried to process everything that had happened in 72 hours. The accident, my mother's rejection, my grandfather's intervention, the money, so much money I couldn't even conceptualize it, the apartment, the trust fund, the lawyer, the cease and desist. My phone buzzed one more time. My father's number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Rachel. His voice was quiet, defeated. Your mother told me what happened, what your grandfather said, what he's doing with the estate. And I wanted to say, I should have... He stopped, started again. I should have stood up for you when you came to the house with Emma. I should have told your mother she was wrong. But I didn't. I never do. No, you don't. She's furious right now, talking about lawyers, about fighting the will. I tried to tell her to let it go, but, Dad, I don't care what Mom does. She made her choice. You both did. Emma and I are fine. We have family that actually wants us. I want you. I wanted to meet Emma, to help you. But your mother made the decision for both of you? Yeah, I know. You let her. You always let her. I shifted Emma to my other arm. I needed you, Dad. For the first time in my adult life, I really needed my father. And you stood there silent while Mom called my daughter a mistake. I know, and I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't help me. Sorry doesn't change what happened. Sorry doesn't give me back the parents I needed 3 days ago in that hospital. Can I see her? Can I meet Emma? Your mother doesn't have to know. And there it was. The same pattern. The same weakness. Wanting to have it both ways. To keep Mom happy while trying to sneak around behind her back. No, Dad. You can't. Because you'd hide it from Mom, and then you'd feel guilty, and then you'd tell her, and then she'd be furious at both of us. I'm done with that cycle. If you want to be in Emma's life, you do it openly. You tell Mom you're choosing your granddaughter. You stand up for something that matters. Otherwise, don't call. Rachel, that's not fair. Life isn't fair. I learned that when I was lying in an ambulance trying to reach my mother, and she wouldn't pick up the phone. Goodbye, Dad. I hung up. Blocked his number too. Emma made a small sound. Her gray-blue eyes, Grandmother Elizabeth's eyes, blinking up at me. I wondered what she would think of all this someday. Whether she'd understand why I'd cut off her grandparents. Whether she'd resent me for it. But then I thought about my mother's voice calling her a mistake. My father's silence. And I knew I'd made the right choice. Sunday morning, Grandfather arrived with a real estate agent. The Queen Anne condo was beautiful. Hardwood floors, modern kitchen, 3 actual bedrooms, a nursery with north-facing windows, washer and dryer in the unit, parking, security, a doorman. It's too much, I said, standing in the living room that was bigger than my entire studio. It's what Emma deserves, what you deserve. The previous tenant's lease ended last month. It's been sitting empty. Move in whenever you're ready. No rent. Grandfather, the building is mine, Rachel. The unit is empty. You living here costs me nothing. Please, let me do this. I signed the paperwork that afternoon. Started packing Monday morning. Emma in her carrier, watching me box up our tiny life. Grandfather sent movers on Tuesday. By Wednesday night, we were sleeping in the Queen Anne condo. Emma in a real nursery with a crib that cost more than my first car. My mother tried calling from different numbers, left voicemails that started angry and ended desperate. Michelle Reeves sent the cease and desist. The calls stopped. My father sent one text. Your mother wants to talk. Please. We're family. I didn't respond. Grandfather visited every day that first week, brought groceries, held Emma while I showered, sat with us in the nursery and told stories about Grandmother Elizabeth, about my mother as a child before everything went wrong, about the family I'd never really known. Your mother wasn't always like this, he said one evening, Emma asleep in his arms. When she was young, before Elizabeth died, she was different, kinder. But losing her mother broke something in her. She became hard, entitled. She learned to love money more than people. I tried to fix it. Tried therapy, boundaries, consequences. Nothing worked. Eventually, I just gave up and left. You shouldn't have left me there with her. No, I shouldn't have. That's my biggest regret, Rachel. Bigger than the years I lost with you. I abandoned you to her, and I'm sorry. You're here now. I am, and I'm not leaving again. I'm moving back to Seattle. Found a house in Madison Park. Close enough to visit, but not so close you'll get sick of me. I want to be here for Emma's childhood. For yours too, if it's not too late. It's not too late. 3 months later, my mother showed up at the condo building. The doorman called up, asked if I wanted to see Patricia Morgan. I almost said no. But something made me agree. She looked smaller than I remembered. Older. Tired. She stood in my living room and stared at Emma, now 4 months old, lying on a playmat, reaching for hanging toys. She's gotten big, Mom said quietly. That's what babies do. Rachel, your father and I, we'd like to apologize for how we handled things, for not being there when you needed us. Okay. That's it? What do you want me to say, Mom? That it's fine? That I forgive you? I don't. You called my daughter a mistake. You told me she'd ruin my life. You refused to help when we were literally in a hospital after a car accident. I was wrong. I see that now. I want to know her, to be her grandmother, if you'll let me. I looked at Emma, happy and healthy and safe. Looked at my mother, who had come here not because she'd had a change of heart, but because she'd realized what her choices had cost her. No, I said simply. Rachel, you don't get to walk back in now that everything's fine. Now that grandfather's made sure we're taken care of. You had your chance to be her grandmother. You chose money instead. Live with that choice. The money has nothing to do with this. I'm your mother. Emma is my granddaughter. I have a right. You have no rights here. You gave those up. And this isn't about money? Really? Because you didn't care about Emma until you found out about the estate changes. You didn't want to meet her until you realized what your rejection was costing you. My mother's face hardened, the vulnerability disappearing. So this is revenge? You're keeping Emma from me to punish me? No. I'm keeping Emma from you to protect her. She's 4 months old, and you've called her a mistake, and a bad decision. You think I'm letting you near her now? You think I'm teaching her that people who treat us like that deserve access to our lives? I'm her grandmother. Biology doesn't make you family. Showing up does. Caring does. Grandfather understood that. You never will. Your grandfather is manipulating you, using money to turn you against me. Can't you see that? Grandfather sent me a private suite when I was injured and scared. You sent me to voicemail. That's not manipulation. That's a choice. You both made yours. She left without meeting Emma, without even asking to hold her. Just turned and walked out, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. I watched her go and felt nothing. No guilt. No regret. Just certainty. Grandfather called that evening. I heard your mother visited. How did you... The doorman called me. Wanted to make sure everything was all right. I may have asked him to keep an eye out. She wanted to meet Emma. I said no. Good. That baby doesn't need people who call her a mistake. Do you think I'm being too harsh? She is my mother. Rachel, let me tell you something I learned too late. Being someone's parent doesn't give you unlimited chances to hurt them. It doesn't mean your children owe you forgiveness when you've broken their trust. Your mother made her choice. She lives with the consequences. That's not cruelty. That's accountability. Emma started fussing, hungry again. Always hungry at this age. I picked her up, started preparing a bottle. I'm coming over with dinner, Grandfather said. Thai food. I know you love the place on Queen Anne Avenue. I'll be there in 40 minutes. He showed up in 35 with enough food for a week. Held Emma while I ate. Told her stories about her great-grandmother, about the family she'd have, about the life that was waiting for her. And I watched this man who had missed 15 years of my life trying so hard to make up for it, being the grandfather I'd needed all along. My phone buzzed. Michelle Reeves. Ms. Morgan, I wanted to let you know your mother's attorney contacted us. They're dropping the will contest. No lawsuit, no challenge. They're accepting the terms. What changed? I suspect William had a conversation with someone, but officially, they realized they had no grounds for a successful challenge. Everything is settled. The estate plan is final. After I hung up, I asked Grandfather what he'd done. I reminded your mother's lawyer that discovery would be unpleasant, that we had hospital records, voicemail transcripts, testimony from medical staff. That fighting this would expose exactly what kind of grandmother she'd been in the moment her granddaughter needed her most. He advised her to accept the settlement. You played hardball. I played smart. Your mother only understands consequences, so I gave her some. Emma fell asleep in his arms, milk-drunk and peaceful. He looked down at her with such tenderness, it made my chest ache. Thank you, I said quietly. For all of this. For showing up. For choosing us. Thank you for letting me. For giving an old man a second chance. For letting me be the grandfather I should have been from the start. He kissed Emma's forehead, careful not to wake her. This is what family is supposed to be, Rachel. People who show up, who choose each other, who protect each other. Your mother never understood that. But you do, and Emma will too. I took Emma from him, laid her in her crib, watched her sleep in her nursery in our condo that was bigger than anything I'd ever dreamed of having, thought about the trust fund waiting for her, the grandfather who flew across the country because we'd been in an accident, the mother who couldn't be bothered to answer her phone. My phone buzzed one last time. My mother, from yet another new number. Please, Rachel, let me meet her. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please. I deleted the message, blocked the number, walked back to the living room where grandfather was dividing up Thai food. She's still trying, I said. She'll keep trying. Your mother doesn't handle losing well, but she'll get tired eventually. They always do. And if she doesn't? Then we have lawyers for that. But Rachel, you don't owe her anything. Not forgiveness, not access, not a second chance she hasn't earned. You protect that baby. That's your job now. Everything else is secondary. He was right. Emma was my job. Emma and the life I was building for her. A life with a great-grandfather who showed up, with financial security, with safety and stability and love, without people who called her a mistake, without grandparents who closed doors in her face when she was 3 weeks old. My mother never stopped trying. Different numbers, different tactics. Letters sent to the condo that security screened. Birthday cards for Emma that I never opened. But I never wavered, never let her in. Because Emma deserved better than a grandmother who needed an inheritance threat to care about her existence. Grandfather kept his promises, moved to Seattle, came to every doctor's appointment he could make. Was there for Emma's first smile, first laugh, first word? Was the grandfather who showed up, who chose us, who made family mean something real instead of just biology and obligation. And my mother got exactly what she'd earned. 40% of an estate. No relationship with her granddaughter. No place in our lives. Just money and regret, and the consequences of her choices, playing out exactly as they should.